أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم صدا ومن خلفهم صدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم محتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أأتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغني عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالأرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا ونتم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يندون سلام قولا من رب رحيم. وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم. ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون. اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون. ولو نشاء لتمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون. ولو نشاء لمزقناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون. ومن نؤمره ننكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون. وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين. أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون. واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون. فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون. أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين. وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم. الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون. أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم. إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون. فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. سورة المباركة الفاتحة. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك برحمتك التي وسعت كل شيء وبقوتك التي قهرت بها كل شيء وخزع لها كل شيء وذل لها كل شيء، وبجبروتك التي غلبت بها كل شيء، وبعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء، وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء، وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء، وبوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء، وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء، وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء، وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء. يا نور يا قدوس يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحتق العصام، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النقام، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعم، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تقطع الرجاء، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء، اللهم اغفر لي كل ذنب أذنبته وكل خطيئة أخطأتها، اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك وأستشفئ بك إلى نفسك، وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من كربك، وأن توزعني شكرك، وأن تلحمني ذكرك، اللهم إني أسألك السؤال خاضع متذلل خاشع، أن تسامحني وترحمني وتجعلني باسمك راضيا قانيا وفي جميع الأحوال متواضعا، اللهم وأسألك السؤال من اشتدت فاقته وأنزل بك عند الشدائد حاجته وأظم فيما عندك رغبته، اللهم عظم سلطانك وعلى مكانك وخفي مكرك وظهر أمرك وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك، ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك، اللهم لا أجد لذنوبي غافرا ولا لقبائه ساترا ولا لشيء من عملي القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك، لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك. ظلمت نفسي وتجرعت بجحلي وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي. اللهم مولاي كم من قبيح سترتا وكم من فادهم من البلاء قلتا وكم من إثار وقيتا وكم من مكروه دفعتا وكم من ثناء جميل لست أحلى له نشرتا. اللهم عظم بلائي وأفرت بي سوء حالي وقصرت بي أعمالي وكعدت بي أغلالي وحبسني النفي بعد عمالي وخدعتني الدنيا بغرورها ونفسي بجنايتها ومثالي. يا سيدي يا سيدي فأسألك بعزتك أن لا يحجب عنك دعائي سوء عملي وفعالي ولا تفضحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري ولا تواجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي ودوام تفريطي وجحالتي وكثرة شهواتي وغفلتي. وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في كل الأحوال رؤوفا وعلي في جميع الأمور يتوفا. إلهي وربي من لي غيرك أسأله كشف ضري والنظر في أمري. إلهي ومولاي أجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي ولم أحترس فيه من تزيين يدوي فغرني بما أحوى وأسعده على ذلك القضاء فتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعد حدودك وخالفت بعض أوامرك فلك الحمد علي في جميع ذلك ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاؤك وألزمني حكمك وبلاؤك. وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تكسيري وإسرافي على نفسي معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستقيلا مستغفرا منيبا مكرا مذعنا معترفا لا أجد مفرا مما كان مني ولا مفضا أتوجه إليه في أمري غير قبولك عذري وإدخالك إياي في سعة من رحمتك. اللهم فاقبل عذري وارحم شدة الضر وفكني من شدي وثاكي. يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني ورقة جلدي ودقة عزمي يا من بدا خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي حبني لابتداء كرمك وسالف برك بي يا إلهي وسيدي وربي. أتراك معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك وبعد من ضوى عليه قلبي من معرفتك ولهج به لساني من ذكرك واعتقده ضميري من حبك وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خاضعا لربوبيتك. هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تضيع من ربيت أو تبعد من أدنيت أو تشرد من آويت أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيته ورحمت. وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي أتسلط النار على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدا وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقا وبشكرك مادحا وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققا وعلى ضمائر حوت من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة وعلى جوارح سعت الأوتان تعبدك طائعة وأشارت باستغفارك مذنا ما هكذا الظن بك ولا أخبرنا بفضلك عنك يا كريم. يا ربي وأنت تعلم ضعفي عن قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها ألا أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه قليل مكثوه يسير بقاؤه قصير مدته فكيف احتمال لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ولا يخفف عن أهله لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض. يا سيدي فكيف لي فكيف بي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحقير المسكين المستقيم. يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي لأي الأمور إليك أشكو ولما منها أزج وأبكي لعليم العذاب وشدتي أم لطول البلاء ومدتي فلئن سيرتني للعقوبات مع أعدائك وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك وفرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك فحبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي صبرت على عذابك فكيف أصبر على فراقك وحبني صبرت على حر نارك فكيف أصبر عن النظر إلى كرامتك؟ أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجائي عفوك؟ فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا لئن تركتني ناتكا لأزجن إليك بين أحلحة زجيج الآملين ولأصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين ولأبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين ولا أنادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين يا غاية آمال العارفين يا غياث المستغيثين يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين ويا إله العالمين أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفته وضاق طعم عذابها بمعصيته وحبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته وهو يزج إليك زجيجا مؤمل لرحمتك ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك يا مولاي فكيف يبقى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمك؟ أم كيف تعلمه النار وهو يعمل فضلك ورحمتك؟ أم كيف يحركه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه؟ أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفا؟ أم كيف يتقلقل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقا؟ أم كيف تزجره زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا ربا؟ أم كيف يرجو فضلك في عتقه منها فتتركه فيها؟ هيهات ما ذلك الظن بك ولا المعروف من فضلك ولا مشبه لما عملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك. فباليقين أقطع لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاهديك وقضيت به من إخلاد معانديك لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما وما كان لأحد فيها مكرا ولا مقاما لكنك تقدست أسماؤك أقسمت أن تملأها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين وأن تجل ثناؤك قلت مبتديا وتتولت بالإنام متقرما أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون. إلهي وسيدي فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالقضية التي حتمتها وحكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريتها أن تهب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمته وكل ذنب أذنبت وكل قبيح أسررت وكل جحل عملته كتمته أو أعلنت أخفيته وأظهرت وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جواره وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم وبرحمتك أخفيت وبفضلك سترت وأن توفر حظي من كل خير تنزل أو إحسان تفضل أو بر تنشر أو رزق تبسط أو ذنب تغفر أو خطأ تستر يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك رقي يا من بيده ناسيتي يا عليما بزري ومسكنتي يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب أسألك بحقك وقدسك وأعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي من الليل والنهار بذكرك معمورا وبخدمتك موصولا وأعمالي عندك مقبولا حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا وحالي في خدمتك سرمدا يا سيدي يا من عليه مؤولي يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب قوي على خدمتك جواره واشدد على العزيمة جوانه وهب لي الجد في خشيتك والدوام في الاتصال بخدمتك حتى أسرح إليك في ميادين السابقين وأسرع إليك في المباردين وأشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين وأدنو منك دنو المخلصين وأخافك مخافة الموقنين وأجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين اللهم ومن أرادني بسوء فاعرض ومن كادني فكيد واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك وأقربهم منزلة منك وأخسهم زلفة لديك فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك وجد لي بجودك واعطف علي بمجدك وحفظني برحمتك واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا وقلبي بحبك متيما ومن علي بحسن إجابتك وأقلني أثرتي واغفر زلتي فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتك وأمرتهم بدعائك وزمنت لهم الإجابة فإليك يا ربي نصبت وجهي، وإليك يا ربي مددت يدي، فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي وبلغني مناي، ولا تقطع من فضلك رجائي، واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي، يا سريع الرضا اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء، فإنك فعال لما تشاء، يا من اسمه دواء وذكره شفاء وطاعته غنى، ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء وسلاهه البكاء، يا سابغ النعم يا دافع النقام، يا نور المستوحشين في الظلام، يا عالما لا يعلم، صل على محمد وآل محمد وافعل بما أنت أحلو، وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. جل فرجهم. سورة المباركة الفاتحة.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Please recite Surah Al-Fatiha for the names displayed on the screen and all marhumins. Surah Al-Mubarakatul Fatiha. Can we please welcome Brother Abbas Farshori to the mimbar with a loud salawat. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Brothers, even in a louder voice. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
One more Surah Al-Fatiha. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يعد حقه المجتهدون، الذي لا يدرك بعد الحمم ولا يناله غوص الفطن، الذي ليس هي صفته نحد محدود ولا نعت موجود ولا وقت ممدود، فطر الخلائق بقدرته ونشر الرياح برحمته. أما بعد، صلى الله على سيدنا ومولانا حبيب إله العالمين وخاتم النبيين أبو القاسم المصطفى محمد. وصلى الله على من هو عند الرسول أخي وابن عمي ووسي ووارثي وموضع سري، أبو الحسنين مولى القونين إمام الثقلين يعصوب الدين رئيس الموحدين قائد الغر المحجلين والسيد المتقين أمير المؤمنين أسد الله الغالب غالب على كل غالب مذحر العجائب علي بن أبي طالب وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين واللعنة الله على القوم الظالمين من الآن إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، إنا أعطيناك الكوثر. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم. After all this time, it appears that Sayyidah Fatemah alayhi salam still remains a secret. Despite all the pages that have been written about her, the centuries in which the poets have tried to describe her, all of the majalises you have listened to your whole life, and every effort that has been made to try and make and demystify her reality, she still remains a secret in who she is. Her reality is a fleeting thing. Sometimes you come near it and you think you recognize who this personality is. She seems comprehensible. And then, like something which is out of your grasp, you hear something or understand something which makes you realize you have not even come close to knowing who this personality really is. She is more than just the sum of biographical details or numbers or a list of fada'il. There is some reality which is specifically associated to her, which sometimes you can feel it, but you can't put your finger on what this thing is. And we actually speak about this in our narrations as well. One of our most important du'as we say is Allahumma inni as'aluka bihaqqi Fatemah. And then we say وَالسِّرِّ الْمُسْتَعَوْدِهِ فِيهَا. I supplicate to you, Allah, based on, for the sake of Fatemah, and those secrets, those asrar which are hidden within her. And I come to you, Allah, using those secrets to try and gain your attention. So I'm literally admitting there's something there that I don't even know what it is. This is the nature of this personality. She belongs in some group of her own. Ask yourself this question, and this will help move our majlis along. If I don't even know what her names mean, how can I understand what her reality is? Her titles, her names, her asma, if I don't even know what they are, how can I know the wujud of the one who I'm crying for, speaking about, doing da'at for? How can I know her if I don't recognize even what her laqab is, her titles are? You see, a name ordinarily signifies meaning, purpose, and if Allah gives names, like He does, for example, for Yahya ala Nabina, for Sayyidah Zainab, He gives name. For some cases, when Allah gives a name, there must be some reason or purpose to it. There's a whole science of ilm al-jafr related to names. Well, look at the names of Sayyidah Fatemah. Each name of hers, each name which is mansoob with her, it holds some of the fragrance of that hidden secret reality that is within her. And here's what we do normally. We mention her names, and then we move along to her biography, her childhood, her history, all those things. And it was actually in her names that the fragrance of her reality was there. But I moved so quickly from her names that fragrance left me, and I was left none the wise in holding on to them. In the names of Sayyidah Fatemah alayhi salam, there is something there. And we should pause. Whereas normally in majalis, I might mention, or someone will mention some tarikh or some aspect of her life. Today we are not going further than just her names, but we're going to do it properly. We're going to look at those names as deep as we can go, as we have the capacity to bear. And let's see that the deeper we go into the names of Sayyidah Fatemah, how much more of her reality becomes somewhat comprehensible to my eyes. And of course, gradually, as Ayyam Fatemiyya is continuing, we're going to be attending many majalises. And I should know more about the one that I'm crying for. I should understand her more to know why her tragedy is so terrible for this ummah and why it still hurts. The more that I know her and recognize those secrets in her, the more this will become useful for me to attend majlis. So that's our journey today. Let's dive into those names properly, with depth and with purpose, inshallah. Ibn Shahrashub, one of our great scholars, in his Al-Manaqib says there are 20 names of Sayyidah Fatemah alayhi salam, 20 names in general. Each of them are uniquely associated to her. But the guiding narration for us today comes from Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam. The Imam says that of all of the names of this personality, there are 9 of her names which are directly or closely connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of all of the names that could be for her, 9 are distinct for her. Those 9 are, of course, Fatemah, As-Siddiqa, Al-Mubaraka, Az-Zakiyya, Al-Radhiyatul Mardiyya, Al-Tahira, Al-Muhaddatha, and Az-Zahra, salawatullahu alayha. Of course, we can't go through all of them. But here's what I propose, and I know that it's a cold night. I know that we are taking a lot of efforts to come out of our homes in these nights. I ask and plead all of you with me here today. Please give me your support, because a topic like this, literally I'm facing an ocean, the Fadail of Sayyidah Fatemah, and I can't go as deep as I need you to allow me to go. We need to do this one together. So if we can begin and we can go as deep as we can into the asma of this holy personality, and we will say no to the cold which would discourage us, and yes to the warmth of Fadail of Ahlul Bayt, and to begin this discussion with the most glorious name of Allah in Fatemah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Okay, are you guys with me, inshallah? The name of Fatemah is where we will begin. We hear it all the time. It is the most famous name associated to her, and it is, of course, her Ism Sharif, her actual true name. The meaning of Fatemah is often associated to the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of Al-Fatir. And the reason for this becomes from the story of Nabi Adam ala nabiyina, where Adam famously is taught the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and those names which he are taught happen to all be linked somehow to Ahlul Bayt, where you find one name of Allah linked to one member of Ahlul Bayt. So when he says, Ya Allah, bihaqqi Muhammad wa antal mahmud, for example, for the sake of Muhammad, and you are the one who's most praiseworthy, but he draws the link between those names. Or bihaqqi Ali wa antal a'la, for the sake of Ali, you are the greatest, the highest. Then he says, Ya Allah, wa bihaqqi Fatemah wa anta fatir as-samawati wal ard, for the sake of Fatemah, for you are the originator of the heavens and the earth. And that's where we begin our discussion today. Fatir, which is linked to Fatemah now, means the origination, the beginning of something, the start of something. And this seems to be one of the names which keeps coming up, one of the meanings of Fatemah. She's somehow related to the beginning of things, the start of things, the origination of something. The name Fatemah comes up again and again and again. Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam, when asked, why is your grandmother named Fatemah? He said, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose her, gave her ilm, and made her at-tahira from the time of the first ahad. From then. Okay, chose her, gave her knowledge, made her pure. When was the first ahad? When the Quran says that Allah gathered all of the arwah and asked them, Alastu bi rabbikum? Am I not your Lord? And they replied, قَالُوا بَلَا وَشَهِدْنَاكُمْ, we bear witness, yes you are our Lord, we bear witness. On that moment, that's known as Ahad al-Ula, the first Ahad, the first covenant. Imam says she was named then. That's when she was called Fatemah. From that time, when all the souls were gathered, she was named as Fatemah. She became at-Tahira from that time, and she was given all of the ilm which she would have in her life from then. Fatir means origination. Look at how early her story starts. From then. So that's one, way of looking at this word. It's supported by another narration from Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he adds to and gives basically the same narration, except in a different version. He says that there was a time, the verse of Quran, وَإِذَا سَوَيْتُ وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي فَقُولُهُ سَاجِدِينَ, that Allah says, I breathed into Adam from my soul and I called all to prostrate to him. When this happened, and Adam and Hawa had this soul of Allah breathed into them, this Ruh Allah, the narration says they walked somewhat proudly in Jannah. And as they walked, they remarked and said the words, look at the greatness that we have in us. When they said this, the Prophet narrates, and it's narrated in the book Lisan al-Mizan, they turned and saw a figure of a woman in Jannah. They said, there was a certain light coming from this figure. It was as if all of Jannah was lit by this. So Adam then says, Ya Allah, what is this being? Allah replies, this is just an image of one who will come in your progeny, who I will call Fatemah. Just an image. It's not even her existence. And she'll be born from you. Adam then says, there's a crown on her head and it shines. What's that crown? And the answer comes, that crown signifies her marriage to Ali bin Abi Talib. Hawa then asked, I see 2 earrings on either side of her ears. What are these earrings related to? And she is told that from the line of this Fatemah, there'll be 2 sons. One's called Hassan, one's called Hussein. And they both are as beautiful as these earrings you see on this being right now. This is Fatemah. Salamu alayha. Alright, so one meaning of Fatemah is this one, origination, like time of Ahad, time of Adam. She's there. She's somehow relevant to the creation at that time. That's one meaning. The other meaning of Fatemah, which is different to this, is someone who has been made different, special, or weaned. Do you know what that word means? But you know when you have certain animals or people who from a young age, they are dependent on a source of food or drink separate from their mother, or a plant which is separate from the plant which normally they have. The word Fatemah is used then to show how they are dependent not on what they should be dependent on, they are distinct, they are special somehow. One of the meanings of Fatemah is this, the one who from her birth is special. That's one of the meanings of it. She is weaned and she is dependent on something other than what others need from the beginning of her life. This meaning of Fatemah is interesting to us because there are other narrations which show to us that she is special from a young age. And it's in her name and in her nature to be special. I'll explain what this means. Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam is asked, what is the meaning of the name Fatemah? What does it mean? He says, the true meaning of the name Fatemah is the one who is, I said it means separate, like keeping separate from something. Fatemah means when someone is kept separate from rijs completely. That's Fatemah. Not they don't have rijs, or they don't touch rijs. وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. That's the meaning of Fatemah. When their whole wujud is completely separate from the acquiring of impurity. That's Fatemah. And not just her. That's the interesting thing. See, this meaning is not just for her. The idea that you are so pure and so beautiful, you are kept separate from impurity. For the Holy Prophet was asked the same question by Imam Ali alayhi salam. Why did you name her Fatemah? Remember, his own mother's called Fatemah. But he's saying, no, why did you call your daughter Fatemah? Prophet says, same thing. Because she is someone who after she has been created will be kept separate from the fire of hell. And all of her Shia, they have the same situation. Separation, distinction, difference, speciality. It all comes from this one word, Fatemah. So one side says Fatemah means origination, beginning, start. The other side said it means distinction, separation, something unique. But let's look at the second side more. It's not just that she's special. Her Shia become distinct just by association to her. This enlarged view of the word Fatemah shows us that, it's not like Fatemah is a moment which someone is named. It's something which is happening, something which is becoming more and more distinct, more and more special. We need to get out of the mindset that this word is stationary. There is movement in the word. Something is being made more and more special the moment this word keeps getting repeated. And it keeps going further and further. Another narration about this, about how Fatemah is not when you are something, it's when you do something. One of the companions has a child. He comes to the sixth month and says, I've had a daughter. Sixth month says, what name have you given to this daughter? He says, I've given the name of Fatemah. The Imam, our sixth Imam, then the narration says, he says, 3 times. This is the name of our mother. This is our mother's name. Then he says, you know something? Now that you have called your daughter Fatemah, it is forbidden for you to abuse her, to curse her, or to hurt her. It's being reminded to us. Because her name's Fatemah, you're reminded of the huquq of the daughter because of the greatness of the name that she has. If Fatemah was just a name like many names, why within that name is there akhlaqiyat present? That you have to treat someone differently because of that name that they have. Something's happening in the name and we don't realize because we move further. But the name implies a certain expected behavior. Give you another example to make this point really clear. Our seventh Imam says, the house in which the women are called Fatemah will never taste poverty. Poverty, the lack of rizq, it won't happen in the house where someone's called Fatemah or a man is called Muhammad. Why? Because there's something in this name which guarantees rizq. The name didn't just happen, it's happening still. One more example, all of you know this example. Which Imam says, if I had 1,000 daughters, I would name them all Fatemah? Abu Abdullah says this for a reason. There's something in repeating this name which you gain, which you wouldn't have had if you just had one of those names. What is the realization which I'm bringing together right now? The name of Fatemah is something happening. I used to think it's a moment where you name someone Fatemah and you move on. Doesn't seem to be the case. In the name is akhlaq, how you treat someone within this name. In this name is also fiqh, the idea of rijs and taharat, in this one name. In the same name is also rizq and the lack of rizq in one name. It goes to show then the name of Fatemah defies place and space. You can't say it's one thing. If someone says, what does the name mean? I can't say just one thing. It's in the name to be more than one thing. That's the meaning of Fatemah in the second sense. Okay, now combine both meanings together. First meaning said what? Fatemah means origination and beginning, right? Second meaning said, Fatemah actually means when something is special and distinct. I've just said the second meaning means, Fatemah actually means there's no such thing as space anymore for this word. It defies space. But if you bring both of them together, Fatemah also defines time as well. How? Her name is related to the first possible thing and the last possible thing. First thing, Adam, Ahad, all of those things in the pre-Adam era. Fatemah is related to that era. The end, which end? All of the Shia who are going to heaven or hell. Fatemah means those who will be made distinct to go into heaven and hell won't touch them. That's the end. This one word of Fatemah is related to the beginning of things and the end of things and the behavior of how you should be between those things. It's like the locus of time becomes this one word. I know I'm going deep, but we're starting like this to keep going like this. Have you noticed how one word can mean so many things? Her one word, Fatemah, means it defies place and it's somehow transcendent to time because it doesn't need a beginning or an end. It's upon both. The beginning is the beginning because Fatemah happens there and the end is the end because the word Fatemah applies there as well. How can one name mean so many things? Because of who was named Fatemah. Because it was her. That's what makes it so distinct and so special. So on the onset, Fatemah means this: the origination and the distinction, which defies both space and time. That's somewhat closer to the true meaning of Fatemah. And what name is most closely associated to this name is Fatemah Az-Zahra. That name always comes up. Now let's dive into this word of Az-Zahra. Salatu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. As we've established, the name of Fatemah has in it the ability to be more than one thing, and it entails that. It requires you to look further than just one thing. It requires you to look at more than one place at one time, and more than one time at once to see what's happening. Something's happening which is underlying reality. Az-Zahra. Zahra is a name of this holy personality which shows to you she's from an entirely different substance than anyone else who's born from this earth. Because Zahra, the true meaning of Zahra, is when a certain form of light emits from a place which shines continuously. The light's not called Zahra. The place from which light comes from, that's called Zahra. The true meaning of Zahra is this: a place from which light emits continuously and shines so bright that it's a distinct light to all others. Zahra means this. So Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam tells us, with the salawat please, that whenever our grandmother Fatemah would go and pray, and she'd be in the mihrab of her house praying, as she'd stand and say Allahu Akbar and start praying, so much light would emanate from that one mihrab that we bear witness it gave more light to the heavens than the stars give to this earth. When our mother said Allahu Akbar for prayer, all of heaven was lit with her prayer. That's Zahra. That's what it means. Prophet says the same thing. He says, look, Sayyid Fatemah, he says, she is from my soul. happiness, my happiness, her anger, my anger, that same narration. Then he says, when she stands to pray, that's when heaven becomes delighted heaven. That's the meaning of Az-Zahra. Zahra, in its true etymological form, is when light is constantly emitted from one place. Now you know why she is Az-Zahra, because she is the one who through herself gives light to others. The hadith tells us that another reason why she's called Zahra is because on 3 times in the day, a different unique light would come from her for the sake of Amir al-Mu'mineen. The narration tells us, in the morning, when he would look at her, he would see light coming from her face the way that the sun starts to shine at dawn. That light would come from her own face. That's why she's called Zahra. At dusk, again, when he would look at her, her face would look different now. There would be the kind of nur from her face that when the moon shines at a full moon in the darkest night, in that moment when the light is that bright, she resembled that type of light at that time in the day. And at night time, when the sun has set, the Imam tells us, Imam al-Askari tells us, her light that came from her face was the kind that you'd see the stars shining in the sky. 3 times in one day, 3 types of light come from one person's face. That's Zahra. In the morning, she resembles the new sun. At dusk, she resembles the new moon. And at night, she resembles starlight. This is the meaning of the name of Zahra. I'll give you one more example to make this point so clear in a way that maybe you'll find humorous. Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Ridha alayhi salam, narrates to us, all of you know how in Shahr Ramadan, like everyone's fighting over where the moon is and we can't find it and everyone's sending messages to win moon wars of that year. Well, listen to this narration. Imam Ridha says, when the new moon of Shahr Ramadan would come, if our mother Zahra was standing outside, the light from her face would dominate the light of the moon. And no one would know when Shahr Ramadan would begin, because the light was more on her. So to know when Ramadan begins, they'd ask her to go inside so the moon could actually show its light. That's Zahra. Her light is so distinct, even the moon of Shahr Ramadan becomes shy and little compared to the nur of Zahra. One meaning of Zahra is this: she does not belong to this world. Her light belongs to the heaven continuously. Whether at Mihrab she lights up the heaven. The narrations actually tell us there would be no light in heaven unless Zahra prayed. It says that because of the light that comes from her. And the fact that the angels only see, because you know how stars give us guidance, they need this light for their guidance because of Sayyidina Fatemah alayhi salam. And this narration now, that the passing of the seasons only is comprehensible when light from Zahra is emitted. Through this name of Zahra, another name becomes present. And that name is Al-Muhadditha. Why do I link these together? Zahra is what? When a distinct light comes from one place. And for some reason, heaven is the place where it comes from. Muhadditha is someone whom the inhabitants of heaven want to speak to. Muhadditha is someone whom angels are in communication with. And that's one of the names of Sayyidina Fatemah alayhi salam. Angels visit her and do ziyarah of her and speak to her and gain knowledge from her. Her light shines heaven, and the inhabitants of heaven come to her for guidance. Read Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Many people are muhadditha, many of them. They can speak to many women actually in the Quran. There are 3 examples I'll give to you in a second where they speak to angels. But there's something different about how she speaks to angels and why they come and speak to her. But we'll get there. Other angels, for example, how Sayyidina Maryam alayhi salam, angels speak to her, she's muhadditha as well. The verse says that وَقَالَتِ الْمَلَائِكَةُ يَا مَرْيَمْ, she's told in the Quran, the angels say, "O Maryam, إِنَ اللَّهُ أَسْتَفَاكِ وَتَحَرَكِ وَاسْتَفَاكِ عَلَى نِسَاءِ الْعَالَمِينَ." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen you and blessed you and made you above all the other women in the world. Angels spoke to her. It's normal. Okay. Same thing for Sarah, the wife of Ibrahim. She's told as well that فَبَشَرْنَاهَا إِسْحَاقَ, you're going to have a son called Ishaq. How did she know she's going to have a son? She doesn't believe she will. An angel comes and tells her, you will have a child called Ishaq. وَمِنْ وَرَائِهِ إِسْحَاقُ وَيَعْقُوبَ, and from your line will come Ishaq and Ya'qub. Mother of Musa, again, angels speak to her. وَأَوْحَيْنَا لِأُمِّ مُوسَى, and Musa's mother was told لِأَسْتَوِيهَا, that you should now feed your child, because soon you'll have to let him go in the river and you won't see him until he returns to you as a messenger. So angels do communicate with people who are not prophets and not imams. But there's something different about how and why they communicate to this muhadditha. There's something different over here. Why? Our sixth imam says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed Bibi Fatemah to speak to angels in a similar form to how Maryam speaks to angels. It's similar, okay? And that they see the same form that comes towards them. He then explains, a Rasul sees an angel in front of them. That's how they talk to angels and get revelation. A Nabi only sees angels in their dream. They can't see them openly. And some people have both. They can see angels in front of them and in their dreams because they're either both a Nabi or a Rasul. But here's where Sayyidah Fatemah is different. She can see angels in front of her. She can see angels in her dream. But she's neither a Nabi and she's not a Rasul. Why? She's not Nabi. She's not Rasul. And still, she can communicate to angels in the way that even some prophets can't communicate. Why? What makes her so special? And this is when I saw there's these secrets about her. She's not an imam of Ahl al-Bayt in the way that other Aimma are. In terms of she hasn't got walayat tashri'i. She's not a prophet. But why are there so many narrations which tell us she's greater than some imams and greater than some prophets? What is happening here that makes her so distinct? Why are angels rushing to meet her? Why? Okay, Maryam, it makes sense. Maryam, why? At least once, twice, or 3 times in the Quran, we read that she needs to be told certain things. Okay, but they visit her at most 3 times. How many times are they visiting Sayyidah Fatemah alayhi salam? I'll put it like to you in these clear words. Maryam is the one that angels might visit once, twice, or thrice in a lifetime. But Fatemah is the one angels visit every day and every night. Why are they distinct like this? Maryam is the one, according to the Quran, angels visit her to give her food. We have it in our books. Okay, well, if Maryam's the one who angels visit in order to give food, Zahra's the one they visit to take ni'mat. They are not the same. But why are they? What's the difference that's happening over here? One gives and one takes. I'll give you another example. Maryam is the one. Are you with me, inshallah? Maryam is the one that when the angels visit her, it's before Isa has been born to give her the good news of Isa's birth. But to Fatemah, Fitrus visits after Hussein has been born. When Hussein has been born. Not to give good news, to take good tidings from the barakah of Sayyidah Shahadah. How are these muhaddithin the same? They are clearly not the same. That's why Allama Iqbal adds and says about this fact in his famous poem about Maryam and about Sayyidah Fatemah alayhi salam, that if Maryam is great because of only one relationship to Isa, how many greatness that comes from Zahra? One relationship is with Rasulullah, one's with Ali ibn Abi Talib, one with Hassan, one with Hussein, one with Zainab, one Kulthum, one with all of the Aimma. If Maryam is great because why? She's the mother of a prophet. Iqbal says, is Zahra not the daughter of the one who's Rahmatullahi al-Alameen? Is he not the one who is the daughter? She's not the one who's the daughter of the one who's Khatam al-Nabiyyin? Iqbal then says, if the whole Muslim world rushes to praise Maryam because she's related to one prophet, is Zahra not the daughter of another prophet who is much greater? Then Iqbal says, the world does fadail of Isa ibn Maryam and says, look at how great Maryam is because, well, Isa is so great. Look at all his fadail. He has this miracle, that miracle, that miracle. Iqbal then says, if that's true for them, then is the husband of Fatemah not the one who's tajdar hal ata wa murtaza wa mushkil kusha wa shere khuda? Ya Ali. If they will praise so much through one relationship, is she not the husband of the one who's greater than all of those who come before? Then Iqbal then says, if it's true that every time Isa comes up in the Holy Quran, he is called Isa ibn Maryam, Isa ibn Maryam, Isa ibn Maryam, and this is praising the mother of Isa. Okay, that's fine. But if the one son of Isa, one son of Maryam is Isa, the 2 sons of Fatemah are called Farzandane Ummat. They're not just her sons, the ummah of all of them, it's all of their sons. And if Isa is praised for having his disciples, 11, 12 disciples, all of those who follow these 2 are known as Sayyid Shabab Ahl Jannah. So if they are muhaddithin, they are not the same level and the same category. That's the point I'm trying to make to all of you. They do speak to angels, angels come towards them, but look at how they come to Zahra. Asking permission, Ya Zahra, may we enter Al-Kisa? No one is spoken to like this except Sayyidah Fatemah alayhi salam. We see these names because of the name of Zahra. See, Zahra opens up many names. One name is Az-Zahra, it's clear. The one that shines light from her. From Zahra comes Al-Muhadditha, the one whom angels come and speak to. Okay, in heaven, she's known as Al-Nuriyya, the one whom light shines and becomes the light of heaven. That's one of her names. It comes from Zahra. Also, she's called As-Samawiyya, literally the lady of heaven. That's one of her names as well. Because in heaven, she's called As-Samawiyya. Okay. Also in heaven, she's called Al-Haniyya as well, the one who is compassionate. All because she's Az-Zahra, light shines from her. You know how you have one light sometimes of one quality and it refracts off a surface and splits into multiple colors? Maybe you've seen it. Especially like when you see one light coming in pure white and then the lights of a rainbow emit from one corner that it shines off of. Zahra is kind of like this. It's one light, but when you pay attention to it, you see all of those hidden shades of light within that one light. That's the meaning of Zahra. And since Zahra also means a rose as well, like a flower, a rose, you notice that the light of Allah is known as the light of Jamal, of beauty, and that's in Zahra. That although you have different types of roses, different colors and shades, if you want to find one place where you'll find all of the beauty of all of those roses in one rose, that's a Zahra. So the name of Zahra is so much more than just a passing, fleeting name which sounds nice. It represents heaven itself and the ashab of heaven and the ziyarah of those from heaven to this earth. All of that exists in this one word of Zahra. Can I give you one more name before we finish, inshallah? Read Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sayyid Fatemah alayhi salam is mansub, is related to the name of of mother, in many different contexts. Mother, means in Arabic, obviously it means mother, but also something which elicits growth or brings growth across. That's the meaning of Okay. She is, of course, Hasanain as one of her names. The mother of Hasanain, which is a great fadilat. And it's one of her great names that she has. If they are Sayyid Shabab Ahl Jannah, she's Sayyid Nisa al-Alameen. It's that clear. If they have that fadilat, she is the lady, the master of all of the women of paradise. She is the one who makes them Hasanain. Because for the first time, you have those two anwar which have not met for generations. One light of Risala, one light of Khilafah. All through history, they've been separate. And even in Arabia, one is in Abdullah, one's in Abu Talib. The only time we see them actually combining is in Sayyidah Fatemah alayhi salam. Why do you think all the Imams come from her? Because she has half of both, the Nur of Muhammad and the Nur of Ali. And from there come Hasanain. So she's known as Hasanain. Okay, and she raises them and that's one of her fada'il. She's also called Imma, mother, same word mother, of all of the Imams. And the same thing is true here. All of the Imams who have the features of Imamat, they must have got it from somewhere. Sayyidina Fatemah alayhi salam embodies the isma, the infallibility and the ilm which is needed for that whole line of Imams. So she is Hasanain and she's Imma. Our sixth Imam says, don't just say she's the mother of Hasanain. Zahra's all of our mother. All of the Imams, we all regard her as our mother. All of the Imams are Sayyid because of her. They're not Sayyid because of the Holy Prophet. They're not Sayyid because of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Imam Ali has many other children through many other wives. None of them are Sayyid. She's the one who makes them Sayyid. So she's Imma. And she's what? Abiha as well. Just to really take this to the next level. Mother of her children, fine. Mother of the other Imams, fine. Mother of her father. This title that was allegedly given to her after the verse of Quran was revealed that the Azwaj Nabi are Mu'mineen. The Prophet then says to her, don't worry, Ya Fatima, they might be mothers of the Mu'mineen, but you are mother of your own father. You are much greater. That's what we are told. She was so caring and loving and kind to her father. He would look at her and see the way a mother cares for a child and say, you are Abiha. One day he comes home and his face is just pale. She knows something's wrong. She goes to ask him what the matter is. When he comes back from Ta'if, the first house he comes from before visiting anyone is the house of Sayyidah Fatemah. She sits down and cleans the wounds on his feet when he was chased away from Ta'if. She does that. When he's in Medina or he's in Mecca and he's preaching and they are throwing intestine of animals on him, the one who cleans his clothes is Fatemah, Abiha. Okay. One of the remarkable things as well, by the way, is how she can be all three of these three things at once. She is an amazing mother to her children. She is the head of a whole lineage, and she's a caring daughter all at once. Many don't understand how one person can be so many things at once. They often say that, we should be preaching about Sayyidah Fatemah and encouraging people to be like her in one aspect only. Maybe you've heard this. They're like, you know what? We've got to tell the women to be good wives because Sayyidah Fatemah was a good wife. Yeah, but she was more than a good wife. She's also a good daughter to her father while she was a wife as well. And she was also a good teacher and educator. So if I'm going to mention one thing, I've got to mention all the things together. That's the whole nature of what makes her special. Okay, someone says, talk about women's rights about Sayyidah Fatemah. Talk about women's rights. Why? Because, she stood for women's rights. She went outside of her home. She did all those things. And I'm like, yeah, I will speak about those things. But then I have to also mention how she was in the home as well, because she was more than one thing. I can't just say she was this activist warrior outside when at home, she was the one who took care of the home too. See, she's more than one thing at once. That's why Ali Sharati says Fatemah is Fatemah. You can't say there's only a part of her. She's Ummul Hasanain and Ummul Aimma and Abiha all at once. But I want to go deeper, and this is the last point that I'll make. Means what? Mother. I'm saying means mother of Hasanain, mother of the Aimma, mother of her father. But there's another meaning of as well. Ar-Raghib says the true meaning of in the Arabic dictionaries is not mother. It is origin or source. In fact, he says actually means the source of the wujud of something is For example, when the Quran says that Lawh al-Mahfuz is Ummul Kitab, what does that mean? The book in heaven is the originator, and from that came this manifested form of the Quran in front of us. Why is Surah Al-Fatiha called Ummul Kitab as well? Because Fatiha has in it all of the resources, all of the ingredients, all of the matter, which would then become the Quran. But its origin is all encapsulated in one surah, Fatiha. Okay, means origin. Means the source of something. So what if we take this definition of and reinsert it back into those three forms of motherhood? How does she look different now? She looks so different. See, Hasanain normally means mother of children, mother of Hassan and Hussein. I get that, she cares for them. But as origin means she's the origin of Hassan and Hussein. But here there's something problematic potentially. Why? They're imams. They're both imams. God has made them imams for a reason. They have wilaya takwini and wilaya tashri'i. They need to have this wilaya. They have to legislate. Their knowledge comes from God directly, and they're imams for that reason. If the origin of what makes them an imam is Fatemah and she's not an imam, how does she get that status? Do you see why this is a question worth asking? If an imam is an imam, they get knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Fatemah, she's not an imam alayhi salam. She's not in that way. So why is it the case that they can't be imams unless she originates it for them? I hope this point's being understood because it's a very delicate point. I'll make it more clear with an example, okay? All of you have heard this famous story. Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, a man is not performing wudu correctly. What happens? They both go towards him. They perform it in front of him and say, can you please correct us if we're doing it right or wrong? And he learns from their correction how he should have done it in the first place. Therefore, they correct an action which he would not have accepted otherwise, and it's happily ever after in that story. Okay, if means origin, they should have learnt that from her. They should have got from her somehow the ability to be humble and correct someone like this. But maybe they did. Imam Ali narrates that once there was an occasion when a woman came to Sayyidah Fatemah alayhi salam, and she had an elderly mother with her. And the mother was asking a question about performing salat incorrectly. And she asked the same question again and again and again incorrectly. And Fatemah is explaining it correctly 3 times. The mother then becomes shy and says, you know what, I feel shy that I keep saying it wrong and you're correcting me. I'm embarrassed to add a burden on you. I don't feel right doing this to you. So the Fatemah says, you can ask me as much as you want to ask me. It is no burden on me. Then she says, I'll give you an example. Imagine there was a man. The man is walking up a roof. On the roof, he's carrying a weight on his back. He's being paid 100,000 dinar for walking up there. The further up he goes, does the actual weight, what he's carrying, change at all? And the woman says, well, no, it doesn't change because the weight is the same. So Fatemah says, do you know something? We are like this. Every time anyone asks us a question, Allah gives us a pearl which is worth more in value from the weight of the arsh until the ardh. We get that reward. And every time you ask us a question, it's not a burden for us. It does not increase or decrease. We are here to answer all of your questions. Here's the moral, by the way. Someone asks you the same thing again and again and again and again. Same thing again and again and again and again. I could easily become frustrated. Why you ask me the same thing again and again and again? But not Sayyidah Fatemah. She's patient each time she's asked. Where do you think a child learns to be humble for an adult who's elderly when he has a problem with wudu, unless they learn from their mother who can correct a woman in this way? Where else would they learn it? Imam al-Hassan gives charity away in his life twice completely. No one else, no other Imam does this. Where did he learn this? Means origin. Where's the origin of this? One day Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam goes down in his house. He sees Sayyidah Fatemah is praying all night continuously, weeping in prayer and prostration. She's not moved from her prayer. When the morning comes, he says to her, "Oh mother, did you pray for me or my brother Hussein like this?" She answers, "No. Ajar thumma dar. I answered first for the neighbors and then I prayed for my own children." A child watches this and then learns how to treat neighbors when he meets them. Means origin. Okay, let's go deeper. Ummul Aimma. If it means mother of the Imams, no problem. What if it means origin of the Imams? Many ulama say this can't be possible because it just theologically it's kufr. You can't say origin of the Imams. But we have a narration from the Imams, a hadith from the Imams, which they say that we, the Imams, are hujjah upon you, the people, but Fatemah is hujjah upon us, the Imams. We're proof upon you. She's proof on us. So someone asked Ayatollah Khushvakh this point that, this makes no sense. And by the way, I've seen friends of mine in House and other places, they say it can't be authentic, and they mention all of these reasons why it can't be authentic, because it doesn't make sense to them. Well, it makes sense to a marja, to an Ayatollah. Ayatollah Khushvakh explained this verse, this hadith. He says to them, it means that whatever Sayyidah Fatemah does, all of the Imams accept it, acknowledge it, consider it as true. She's not an Imam. She's not from the Ithni Ashar. And all the Imams have to accept what she says as truth. Why? Do you not see when I say something doesn't make sense here? She's not an Imam Ahlul Bayt, but why is she hujjah on all of them? Abiha really blows the mind now. Abiha means mother of her father normally. How can it mean origin of her father? She's Rasulullah, who's Khatam al-Nabiyyin, he's the Prophet. How is Fatemah her origin? There's an answer here. The answer is that we, in our books, knew something in theory for a long time, in philosophy. But we never knew it in practice until this moment when Fatemah was called Abiha. It was like pages and pages of theory became practice for the first time. How? This is literally the last thing I'll say, so please give me salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So if means origin, somehow origin of her sons, okay, origin of the Imams, somehow origin of her father, like how is she the origin of her father? Okay. In philosophy, we have a principle, which is that the one who gives something must have it in order to give it. It's a principle in philosophy. For example, like if I give you this tasbih, I must have it first to give it to you. It makes sense logically. Anyone who transfers anything to a second or third person must first have it before they give it. If you're giving someone money, you've got to have it in your bank before you give that money to someone. If you're passing the ball at football, you've got to have the ball with you before you pass it for the pass to be complete. Okay, football example done, the youth are with me. New example. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates, how do we know He's wajib al-wujud? How do we know He's a necessary existence? If He gives existence, He must have first have had it in Himself to give it to someone else, right? So if a effect has existence and that effect, surely the cause first must have wujud in order to give it in the first place. The example we give often is if you have a race that people are running, everyone makes the example, and the first person can only run if they're given a baton by the person next to them, and they can run if they're given a baton by the one next to them. Okay, if no one actually has that baton, no one's running, they're all just waiting, but one person must have had it first to start passing it along so everyone can run. Allah's wujud like this, He must exist to give existence, otherwise we'll all be waiting eternally for His existence. Okay, He must have life as well. He must have life. Why? Well, I have life, you have life. So how can God give me life if He's not got life Himself? So slowly we're piecing an image of God that comes together. Okay, we come to the conclusion then, theoretically, although we can't prove it, in Allah's essence, He must have knowledge of all things before He creates them. And they must exist in His knowledge exactly as they are after He creates them. Before kun fayakun, before me and you existed, Allah must have had perfect knowledge of this moment right now. of exactly as you are, of everything you have done, everything you're going to do. Because if He's going to create you, He must have had knowledge of everything that you are to create you in the first place. So theoretically, we must all have existed in exactly this form in God's knowledge before we ever had existence. It blows your mind, but it must be true logically. Before kun fayakun, I must have been exactly like this in God's knowledge, completely like this. Okay. Why was this so hard to understand? And how does Biha change this? There's a line in the ziyarah to Sayyidina Fatemah alayhi salam where we say, Assalamu alayka ya mumtahana. Salam upon you who was examined by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, amtahana. Wa amtahnakillah, and examined by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then we say, you are the one, ya Fatemah. Alladhi. Okay, this line is baffling, but please listen to it. Alladhi khuliqi qabla an yakhluqaki. You are the one, Fatemah. Allah created you before He created you. There's not a single line like this about any member of Ahlul Bayt, except this one example. Alladhi khuliqi. You were created qabla, before an yakhluqaki, before you were created. What does it mean for Allah to say, I created you before I created you? And like I said, the only example we find that ever is here. For some reason, when God is proving He creates you and has intimate knowledge of you before He creates you, the only example He gives is of Sayyidina Fatemah alayhi salam to prove the extent of His knowledge. Why? Why her? Why her is the real question. Here's the answer. One narration which makes this somewhat clear. Hadith Qudsi, Allah says, Ya Ahmad, O Muhammad, لَوْلَاكَ مَا خَلَقْتُ الْأَفْلَاقِ. If it was not for you, I would not have created the entire world. وَلَوْلَا عَلِي مَا خَلَقْتُكَ. If it were not for Ali, I would not have created you, Ya Rasulullah. وَلَوْلَا فَاطِمَةَ مَا خَلَقْتَكُمَا. If it was not for Fatemah, I would not have created either of you. Again, it makes no sense. He's Rasulullah. He's Ali ibn Abi Talib. Okay. At most, I could say why we need Ali for Muhammad. I could explain that he's Nafs Rasul, all those things. But Lawla Fatemah ma khalaqtakuma. None of you would have existed if it was not for Fatemah. This is a next level now. Abiha means this partly. That when the Prophet says that Fatemah is a part of me, bid'atu minni, she is so significant a part of him, he would not be who he was if Allah had not made her as she is. At most, I can say that. We can't say more. If I said my arms are part of me, my legs are part of me, if I lose that part of me, I'm still me. If I say my head is a part of me, my heart is a part of me, if I lose those things, I lose my whole life. I don't exist. The hadith says, if it was not for this part of you, Ya Rasulullah, there would have been none of you. If it wasn't for Lawla Fatemah, ma khalaqtakuma, you would not have existed. I would not have created you or Ali if it was not for Fatemah. One of the secrets of her is that somehow in her essence, there is something so important, so special. Allah makes her the center of Risala and Imamah. Neither can exist without her. And she was created as this. She was intended as this even before all of creation. She had to be like this. Those mustawdhi fiha, they had to be in her from the beginning. The plan of Allah, a necessary part of the plan was that Fatemah is Fatemah. Walawla Ali, and Ali would not be Ali if it was not for Fatemah as well. Not just the Prophet, even Ali ibn Abi Talib. Why? Our sixth Imam says, if it was not for Ali, there would be no one on this earth from Adam till Khatam who was equal to marrying Fatemah. Have you seen the opposite? No. There's no narration which says if it wasn't for Fatemah, they'd be not married. Imam Ali marries women after Sayyidina Fatemah alayhi salam is shaheed. He marries them. He has children with them. But the other way around is true. Only this way around. And that's it. If it wasn't for you, Ali, and you know how much you have reached, no one would have reached Fatemah. No one would have reached her. Abiha somehow, and I really don't know the conclusion of this part, but somehow it means Fatemah alayhi salam is such a significant part of the Prophet. Her wujud has so much in it that she's the origin and the source. Whatever we call Fatemah, that thing is the origin and source of Risala and Nubuwwah and Imamah. Those things wouldn't be what they are without her. Biha was actually her favorite name that she had. Her favorite name. She is the origin, she is the source. Also means the center. And she is the center of all of it. I don't know why she's the center, but I wanted to show you that in the names of Sayyidah Fatemah, you see that she is entirely different and distinct from anything else that we have seen. Even the Imams, we have ways of talking about them, and none of those rules apply about how we speak about her. She is Abiha. She is Muhaddatha. She is Az-Zahra. She is Al-Haniya. She is Fatemah. She is all of these things. And she is Madhluma as well. She is Ash-Shahida as well. Now do you see who we have lost in Fatimiyya? One of the earliest accounts that we have in Kamil Ziyarat, our seventh Imam says, when you refer to our mother, call her by this name. She's Ash-Shahida. She is martyred. That's who she is. We have come to, according to a riwayat, one of the nights in which she became Ash-Shahida. The same narration which tells us she is Shaheed in about 2 weeks from now is the same one which says she's Shaheed today. On this night, she would have been laying in her bed, having the last moment on this earth with Ali ibn Abi Talib. Az-Zakiyya, At-Tahira, Al-Ma'sum. She is on this time, she is madhluma, she's in pain while lying on her deathbed. The narrations tell us while she's lying there, there's a piece of cloth on her head. And since the Holy Prophet, before he passed away, since the time he passed away, she's not removed that cloth from her head. It has remained there in mourning for her father. And she lies on the bed and she calls Imam Ali alayhi salam to come to see her for one last time. The bed has been moved to the center of the house. So the moment he walks in, he sees her lying there. The hadith does not tell us where her hands were, but maybe they were on her ribs. Because it has been either 75 days or 95 days that her ribs have been broken. And Shaykh Wahid Khurasani says every time she would breathe, each sharp intake of breath would remind her of the feeling of death. To go from day to day in that state of pain. Her body has weakened from mourning and now she lies on her bed. She says, Ya Ali, please come towards me. He comes towards her. She says to him, this is my last day on this earth with you. This is my last day with you. Before you came, I washed the hair of Hassan and Hussein and gave them new clothes because I will never see them again. And I sent them to go to the masjid to see my grandfather. They have left, so it's just you and me now. Then she says to him, I wanted them to go so that I could finally, before I go and leave you, empty my heart to you, Abul Hassan. She says these words. Imam does ishara for any of the servants to leave and he sits down beside her as if to say, begin, what do you wish to say to me at this time? This moment of hers, this akhir wasiyah of Sayyidah Fatimah alayhi salam, is one of the hardest moments of her life. She says to him, Ya Ali, this is the hardest time for me. He says, why? She goes, because this is the time when I'm leaving you. This moment of leaving you at this time. Then she says, I want you to know something, Abul Hassan. I have tried to serve you my whole life. I've tried to, in your home, do everything you say. And you know to me be a person of truth. I've never tried to do anything to oppose you. Imam Ali says, stop, looks down and starts crying when he hears these words. He looks up and says, why do you use words like this with me? When have you ever upset me? When did you oppose me? Your honor is far too great to say these words to me, Ya Zahra. There is nothing you do. It's as if she is trying to say sorry. And he's saying, what do you have to apologize to me for? What have I done in that way? He starts weeping. Then he says to her, Zahra, you should know that it is painful for me to see you like this, to lose you. Listen to how he addresses her at the end of her life. It's hard for me to say goodbye to you. He says, my heart breaks even while you speak to me. And I'm reminded of the grief of Rasulullah leaving us when I see you leaving me. This is a calamity for me. When he says this, he starts crying, she starts crying. Ali takes the head of Zahra and holds it by his chest and weeps in those last moments in his life. When they are done weeping at that time, she looks up and says, oh my dear husband Ali, our companionship is coming to an end. He replies and says, our friendship that we had was like two birds which would fly in their youth. I had you in the best years of my life, O Zahra. And just like time separates two best friends from each other, now time separates me from you. Tell me, what is your wasiyah? What is your will that you would like to give towards me? So the Fatemah says, my first will that I give to you is marry my niece Umama. For all of our children are very close to her. And our children are young. I would like it that before I go, I know that they'll be cared for by someone who loves them like I love them. Ali says, I will do this action for you. Then she says, oh Ali, when I die, you must do my ghusl, you must do my kafan. And you must bury me and no one else. And when you bury me, please sprinkle water on my grave. But then she says, Ya Ali, after you bury me, don't leave immediately, wait with me a little. Sit down next to my grave, because I will need you in those moments. After you bury me, stay sometime. So indeed, when he buries her, he sits with her. And he says those words, I am calling you, but you don't answer me, Zahra. All my life, when I would come home, I would call you. And you'd answer immediately. Now that I have buried you, I keep calling you and you don't answer me anymore. I read one hadith today where he says, have you forgotten me already in the dirt? And he would walk away from her. Then she says, I ask of you, Ya Ali, bury me yourself, no one else. And bury me at night. Why? She says, there are people who oppressed me in my lifetime. People who hurt me. People who cause so much pain to me. Don't let them enter my house. Don't let them come to my burial. Ali, I give this to you. At night, bury me so none of those who cause pain to my body and to my children, don't let any of them come. Bury me in secret. Let it be a secret. He says, yes. The reciters say there was then one more thing which she says to him. This thing breaks the heart. She says, Ya Ali, I know that outside you are Asadullah, you are this lion of God. But I know that inside you are gentle and you are kind. So I tell you this last wasiyah. Of all my children, there is one called Hussein and he is very attached to me. When I die, he has become accustomed to sleeping on my chest. I know you are soft, so you must be like a mother and a father to him. If Hussein comes and cries for me, take him on your chest. Hold him like I would hold him. Ask yourself, of all the children before she dies, why does Zahra mention Abu Abdullah at this moment in time? Why? Maybe it's because Hussein was there, where? In the house which was burning, facing the door that was closing in on his mother. Abu Abdullah, watch that moment. He will live his whole life with that moment in his mind and come to Karbala when around him all his brothers and his sons and nephews are leaving him. Hussein still thinks of his mother Zahra then. And she thinks of him then as well. Oh, Ali, hold him close. Why? He will miss me. I bear witness on this day, Hussein missed Fatemah on Ashura. All through those times. Why? Because maybe he remembered the moment. What moment? They say that on that night when the house is burning, Zahra goes towards the door. Hussein and Hassan are watching. A man outside says, Zahra, come out. Why? Ali is in ropes outside. He has not yet given allegiance. Come out and give allegiance. Zahra says, I will not leave. They say, then we will set fire to the house before you come out. Zahra says, I am the daughter of Rasulullah. The answer comes, so what if you are the daughter? They come and start burning the house of Fatemah. Abu Abdullah watches and sees a man kicks the door and Zahra falls behind. Maybe the sound of the cracking of a rib is heard in that home. So we don't know exactly when that rib breaks. Some say it breaks when she falls against the wall behind the door. Some say the rib breaks when she falls to the ground. Some say that's when the door is opened and Fatemah is there between the wall and the door. One mal'oon called Qunfud comes in, wrists his boot and starts to press the door against Zahra behind the wall until the sound of cracking is made. Yani between the stone of the wall and the wood of the door, a rib breaks from that force. Now come to Karbala. How can a son who sees this at 5 years old forget this moment? Abu Abdullah is fighting against Shimr. They say at one moment comes. Hussein is struck. He lies on the ground. He does not move from that moment. As he lies there, the narration tells us, Zainab runs from Tilla Zainabiyya and says, my brother Hussein, if you are alive, tell me. I've seen you fall many times, but I've not seen you stay still for so long. Hussein does not answer at this time. Then the narration says, Zainab shouts and says, oh Abu Abdullah, for the sake of our grandfather Rasulullah in Medina, if you are alive, tell me. Hussein does not move. Zainab then says, Ya Abu Abdullah, for the sake of our father Ali, who we saw coming from the masjid with blood pouring from his head, if you are alive, tell me. Again, there's no answer. Then she says, Ya Abu Abdullah, for the sake of that Hassan, you and I pulled arrows from the body of his coffin after arrows were fired. If you are alive, tell me. Again, there's no answer. But then Zainab says, Ya Abu Abdullah, for the sake of those broken ribs of our mother Zahra, which you witnessed, if you are alive, tell me. They say from the maqtal, the body starts moving. Hussein tries to stand. He leans on a pole and says, no one should mention the broken ribs I saw of my mother Zahra, and I remain alive. Zainab, go back inside. I'm still alive. Zainab, go back inside, I'm still here. You see, just as Sayyidah Fatemah alayhi salam falls to the ground, Abu Abdullah falls to the ground. Just as she holds onto her womb and says, Fizza, don't come near me harshly, be gentle. I can feel my son Muhsin has been shaheed. Abu Abdullah walks with his son who's been shaheed. 7 times he walks forward and backwards with Ali Asghar's blood on his beard, saying, Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. But there's one more thing, how they're similar. How they say when Zahra alayhi salam falls to the ground, the first thing she says is not Ya Ali, it's not Ya Rasulullah. The first thing Zahra says when she falls to the ground is Ya Mehdi. Oh my son Mehdi, where are you? I need you on this day. Now come to Karbala. Hussein is lying there, not on the ground, you understand, on arrows suspended on the ground because of how many wounds he has in his body. Shimr is walking towards him with his sword outside. Hussein looks up and says, Ya Allah, I bear witness, those same 2 who killed my mother have killed me as well. Then he looks at the blood and says, Ya Allah, all of this blood, it will not rest until my son the Mehdi comes and avenges every drop of blood on Karbala. أين الطالب بدم مقتول بكربلاء اللهم إني أسألك بحق فاطمة وأبيها بعليا بنيها والسر المستعود فيها. Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, for the sake of this majlis and the tears we have shed, allow all of us to be followers of Sayyidah Fatemah alayhi salam. Ya Allah, for the sake of all those who come to majlis with hajat and dua, Sayyidah Fatemah is the one who answers and takes all du'as to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya Allah, for the sake of this night of her shahadat, take all our du'as and istighfar to the palace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And finally, as I close, Ya Allah, we are doing tragedy after tragedy. Our people are being slaughtered around the world and we can still not visit Jannatul Baqi. Ya Allah, make it soon we can do ziyarah of the Sayyidah Fatemah in Medina, and make it soon that we can avenge all the blood that was shed on Karbala and in Medina with the coming of Imam Zaman alayhi salam and his duhur, inshallah. Matam Hussein.
Fatemah Zahra, Fatemah Zahra, Fatemah Zahra, Fatemah Zahra. Zahra की दुआ है मातम ये मातम कैसे रुक जाए. Zahra की दुआ मातम ये मातम कैसे रुक जाए. ज़हरा की दुआ है मातम ये मातम कैसे रुक जाए. ज़हरा की दुआ है मातम ये कौनैन की हर दौलत देकर इस गम की हिफाजत करना है, शब्बीर की खातिर जीना है, शब्बीर की खातिर मरना है। ये जिस्म रहे या मिट जाए, मजलूम का मातम करना है। ये जिस्म रहे या मिट जाए, मजलूम का मातम करना है। ज़हरा की तमन्ना पूरी हो, ये जान रहे या लुट जाए। ज़हरा की दुआ है मातम ये मातम कैसे, ज़हरा की दुआ है मातम ये मातम रुक। इस परचम की अज़मत के लिए अब्बास ने बाजू दे डाले, इस परचम की इज़्ज़त के लिए गाज़ी ने सहे दिल पर भाले। इस परचम के मशकीज़े से लिपटे हैं सकीना के नाले, इस परचम के मशकीज़े से लिपटे हैं सकीना के नाले। अब्बास अली का परचम है, ये परचम कैसे झुक जाए। ज़हरा की दुआ ये मातम कैसे रुक जाए। ज़हरा की दुआ है मातम ये कैसे रुक जा। वो वक्त है अब तक आँखों में जब खून था गलता इब्ने अली, और गूंज रही थी मक़तल में फरियाद व फ़ुग़ां एक दुखिया की। सीने से बहे खून के धारे, ये हाथ न रुकने पाए कभी। सीने से बहे खून के धारे, ये हाथ न रुकने पाए कभी। मजलूम का मातम होता रहे, ज़हरा की सदा जब तक आए। ज़हरा की दुआए ये मातम कैसे रुक जाए। ज़हरा की मातम से रुक, जब तक के सकत इस जिस्म में है, हक अपना अदा कर देना है। किस्मत जो सादत दे हमको, ये जान फिदा कर देना है। या अश्क से या खूने दिल से उस दामन को भर देना है। या अश्क से या खूने दिल से उस दामन को भर देना है। आई है यहाँ एक शहजादी, उम्मीद का दामन फैलाए। ज़हरा की दुआ है मातम ये रुक जाए। ज़हरा की दुआ है मातम ये कैसे रुक। ये मातम है हलमिन की सदा, हर अश्क है जज्बा नुसरत का। यूं हक़ की तरफ आ जाने का हासिल है अभी तक एक मौका। पहचान ज़मीरो दिल की सदा, इस मातम में शामिल हो जा। पहचान ज़मीरो दिल की सदा, इस मातम में शामिल हो जा। शबीर बुलाते हैं अब तक, गर हुर हो कोई तो आ जाए। ज़हरा की दुआ मातम ये मातम कैसे रुक जाए। ज़हरा की दुआ मातम ये मातम कैसे हुसैन 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 अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला السلام عليك يا نبي الله، السلام عليك يا حبيب الله، السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين سيد الوصيين إمام المتقين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا خديجة الكبرى أم المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك، عليك مني جميعا سلام الله عبدا ما بقيت وبكي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام عليك يا شهداء كربلاء جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء، السلام عليك يا معيد الضعفاء والفقراء، السلطان أبا الحسن مولانا علي بن موسى الرضا، كن شفيعنا وشفيع والدينا في يوم الجزاء. السلام عليك وعلى أختك فاطمة المعصومة ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب العصر والزمان، السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن، السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. الأمان 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 من فتنة الزمان، عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وظهورك، واجعلنا من أنصارك وشيعتك ومحبيك. السلام عليك وعلى آبائك الطاهرين ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل الساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا، حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.